Wrapping up the AFC South and wrapping up the AFC, our last team that is not in the NFC South here on our team previews, it's the Tennessee Titans, team number 28 of 32 on bet.NOLA.com, powered by the Datitude podcast. I am Jim Derry, and these Titans, I'm going to give you a little heads up. We're not going to spend a ton of time on my monologue because we spent extra time with our expert, Adam Chernoff, and I don't want this to run too long because you want to hear what the expert thinks, not as much what I think. I will say this. There has been a lot of disagreement between myself and some other semi-amateur, semi-pro, whatever you want to call me, bettors. There's a lot that I got right last year. There's a few things that I got wrong. But the ones I got right were mostly in agreement with the pros. This was not one of them. There was major disagreement last year between myself and the pros on the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. We've already talked about the Colts. You saw the debate that Adam and I had on the Colts. Well, we have a similar debate in the opposite direction on the Tennessee Titans. So, spoiler alert, call it whatever you will. These Tennessee Titans are coming off a season when they were the number one seed in the AFC. So why are other professionals down on them again? Are they just being stubborn? Or am I just being stubborn? Well, let's start it with the best running back in the NFL, and that is Derrick Henry. And obviously injured for the last half of the season, didn't play, but he's still the best running back in the NFL, right? I mean, we can debate it if you want. You can talk about Jonathan Taylor. I'm not just talking about fantasy football. But I think Derrick Henry is the best running back in the NFL. I think pound for pound, he's the toughest to be stopped. Even behind an offensive line that could be called one of the worst in the NFL, they're certainly in the bottom 6 or 7. Pretty much no matter where you look, they're in the bottom 6 or 7. But it doesn't matter for Derrick Henry. Where it does matter, it matters for Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill lost his top target in A.J. Brown. We understand that. But could Treylon Burks be the next A.J. Brown and take over that spot? Right now, he's not listed as the number one receiver. That honor goes to Robert Woods. But we all know that Treylon Burks is going to take over that role. You got to be a huge fan. Again, not getting it. I just don't understand why people don't love this team. You look at their numbers, and they're 9.5 at season. It's over-under win total, 9.5, and you're getting value there because you don't have to pay any juice to get that 9.5. You think that, like I do, that the Titans are better than 9.5 wins. However, you can, if you shop around and you like this over, you can find them as low as 8.5 at some places. So if you like the under, you're going to bet it at Caesars, right? 9.5, even with that juice. If you like the over, go shop around and get yourself an 8.5. A lot of this comes to me when you talk about the Titans and whether they're going to be able to be as good as they were before. It comes down to Mike Vrabel in his 5th year. I don't know what it is about this dude. Maybe he messes some things up in games, but he gets more out of his players than I think that anyone else gets. And to me, that means a whole lot. And I know that professional handicappers are guys, they're analytics guys. They go by numbers. They go by rankings. They go game by game. They take lines and look ahead lines and figure out where they think this team should be. And I know most of them think that this is going to be a team with a losing record. But look at their schedule. And we go to it and starting off, it starts off harmless enough, getting the New York Giants at home before a big game against the Buffalo Bills on the road. Okay, so they're 1-1. But what do we think after that? Las Vegas is no easy game either. And at Indianapolis, I said it with the Colts, and I'll say it again. That, to me, they get the Colts 2 out of 3 games with a bye week sandwiched in. We're going to find out a lot about whether the Titans are still the king of this division or not, because they get them October 2nd. They get them October 23rd with the Washington Commanders and a bye sandwiched in. Like the Colts, I don't love this bye week and where it is. I hate early bye weeks, super early bye weeks, and I hate super late bye weeks. And this whole division has either super early or super late. But then after that, you look at it, there are games they can win and maybe games that they can't win. After the Colts, again, at Houston, obviously they should win that one. What are they going to do at Kansas City? Are they going to be able to pull off another miracle? They've had some success at Kansas City. Then they play Denver at Green Bay. We know Green Bay is not the same Green Bay team that they've been. They get the defending AFC champion, Cincinnati Bengals, Thanksgiving week at Philadelphia. And if you look at the way this schedule ends, if they can find a way to get to 8 or 9 wins by week 13, Jacksonville twice, Houston in there, at the Chargers is tough. I'm not as high on the Chargers as most people are. And then Dallas on a Thursday game. That's going to be an interesting one for sure. So, look, I think this Titans team is better than 9.5 wins. I'm not sure why everyone's jumping all over the Colts bandwagon. I know I'm in the vast minority. I like the Titans to win the division. I like the Titans to go over, and I am going to play both of those things. I'm not going to play the conference or Super Bowl odds, but I'm going to play the other ones, and I can't wait to hear the biggest disagreement of the week, maybe the biggest disagreement of the year, except for the Colts, which is all sandwiched into the same thing. Let's hear it. Don Henley once said that this is the last worthless evening you'll ever spend. Well, maybe this is the last worthless NFL team preview that local New Orleanians will have, because it's the last one we do that is not about the NFC South. It is the Tennessee Titans. I got to think it's going to be fun here. Our preview with our expert, Adam Chernoff from Covers.com. And I am expecting full-blown disagreement. I'm letting it know ahead of time. The Titans, their over-under on win total is 9.5. Every professional bettor I know hates the Titans. They all love the Colts. It's like Mardi Gras in Vegas, and I think we're going to have that here again. And I'm going to you can see where I'm going with this. I've already said it in my monologue. I like the Titans. It might be the only thing that last year where I was right and the professionals were wrong. So we're going to go 2 for 2. And it's not just because I'm stubborn, Adam Chernoff. It is because I don't understand. I get there's no A.J. Brown. I get Ryan Tannehill disappears in the playoffs. I'm not betting on him to win the Super Bowl. I'm betting on him to win this division. I'm betting on them to win more than 9.5 games. I still think overall they're better than the Colts. I know their offensive line isn't that great, and people are down on Derrick Henry, and Treylon Burks could be the next A.J. Brown. I don't know. But I've already said what I think in my monologue, so tell me why I'm wrong, and I'm certain you're going to tell me why I'm wrong.
I think you just said it. I don't know if I need to say it. The offensive line is horrible. This went from a offensive line in terms of run blocking success rate that's been top 10 for the last number of seasons. A lot of key projection sites this year have it as a bottom 4 unit. So this has gone from top 10 to 28th in a lot of the projections. It's because they lost so much key talent. And so when we think about how this offense is constructed and what has worked for this offense the last number of seasons, it's Ryan Tannehill working off of play action and Derrick Henry wildly overachieving. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not talented, but like the numbers and production we were getting out of him were like nothing we've ever seen before. Now he goes down with the injury and he kind of is turning into a bit of a different running back, but he's going to look like a very different running back now that this O-line has taken such a massive step back due to key departures. And where this gets really messy is you start to think maybe that run game is not going to be as efficient. Well, let's read off some of these skill players, Jim. Robert Woods off of an injury. Treylon Burks, who has seen the biggest drop in his full season receiving yards prop of any player in the NFL because so many professionals are betting him under. He's wide receiver number 2. Number 3 is Nick Westbrook-Akine. And these are going to be the guys that you're relying on Ryan Tannehill behind a bad offensive line with a defensive-minded head coach to lead this team to success. This is a very different scenario for the Tennessee Titans than we've seen in seasons past. And this win total is as high as it is because this is as bad of a top seed from the playoffs a year ago as we have ever seen a top seed be as long as I have been alive watching the NFL. And so that's why this total is still so high. These are easy unders for me with Tennessee.
You're completely writing off Racy McMath, who went to Carr High School here in New Orleans and is an LSU Tiger. I mean, come on, Adam. I get where you're going. I'm not as strong on Tennessee as I was last year. I will say that. And I had Super Bowl bets on them last year. I won't have Super Bowl bets on them this year. But I
That's
think
right.
that at plus 170, I just don't understand. It's not that I don't understand. I get where you're coming from, and I understand the logic, but it's the same logic basically that was used last year. Derrick Henry and he's coming off of an injury. The same logic that was used on Derrick Henry last year. We hear how terrible Ryan Tannehill is. This offensive line isn't that much worse than it was. I mean, it's bad, but it's not that much worse than it was last year. I heard the same exact things last year at this time and it almost got me to change my mind on something, but I didn't. I stuck to my guns and I won some money with the Titans. Not a ton, I guess, but I mean, you're right. Maybe they are the worst number one seed in the history of football. I mean, they certainly didn't belong as number one, and they went through that miracle stretch of 4 games.
Yep.
I think about Josh Allen just kind of like falling on his face at the goal line on Monday night. I still don't know what that was. Maybe that changes everything, but luck, whatever it may be, I just still think the Titans are the best team in this division.
I'll put it this way. So if we think about prices, yesterday we talked about the Jags, and
Yeah.
you can get them at about 6-1 or better to win the division. Tennessee, you're looking at like plus 170, a little less than 2-1. So a big difference in potential payout return and what the expectations would be. I think everything centers around what you think about the Colts within this division. So if you're low on Indianapolis as the favorite within this division, I think it's very hard to justify betting the Titans more so than betting the Jags. Because even just hearing our disagreements or agreements the last couple of pods, everything about Jacksonville was like, this could be a lot better than we think it could be.
Yeah.
And with Tennessee, we're like, well, it's kind of going the other direction and we can point out flaws here. And so I think if you have to compare the two and you're in this situation where you're not in on the Colts, I would find it hard to justify betting the Titans at plus 170 compared to the Jags at plus 650. So that's something to think about for sure.
Last thing, we'll just spend 20 seconds on it because I did want to touch on it because I know how you feel. You don't like defensive-minded coaches. Excuse me. But I think there's not enough said about how much Mike Vrabel gets out of his people. He continues to do it over and over again. They overachieve, and I think a lot of it has to do because of him.
Maybe. I think we need a whole podcast on Vrabel. And
Yeah,
what I think
maybe we
about
do.
him. I will say, like you mentioned, luck has been a big part of it. There's been a lot of good things happening on offense from an explosive play perspective at the right time to potentially disguise a lot of his miscues and decision making. Like you said, the professionals bet against the Titans for a reason, and professionals think long term, and they look at it over the course of seasons, not days and weeks. And I think this year a lot of that comes to reality.
Well, professional bettors are analytical minds. They do everything by numbers. They don't do I can't say they do anything. They do very little by feel. It's all in front of them. It's fact or fiction. There's no black or white. It is what it is. And so I can completely understand, but that's why we have you on. And we thank you for coming through with us. We are finished with the AFC. We'll wrap it up next week with the NFC South, and we will have some fun next week. We might have some agreements next week. I got a feeling.
It's going to be a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Thank you, Adam.
Chat to you Monday.